Hello, my name is Andrew Thake, and today I'm with Danny Callow, President and CEO of the African Gold Group. Delighted to have you with us today, Danny.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andrew. Good to be here.
Well, perhaps you can just start off by telling our viewers who don't know too much about African Gold, a little bit about African Gold's background and history.
Yeah, sure. So we are a TSXV listed explorer and developer. We've been around quite a long time. I've been involved in the company for about the last 2 years and focused specifically on our southwestern Mali project, which is the Kabada project, around 180 kilometers southwest of the capital Bamako. We got involved in August 2019. We inherited a fair amount of data, and that allowed us to really scrutinize the project and have a look at it. And we decided that the best route forward was over the last 2 years to really focus on the technical data. So make sure that we could defend every single number in the study and make sure that we were 100% au fait with how this project could be taken into construction and operation.
And what is Mali like as a mining investment jurisdiction?
Well, look, Andrew, I've worked in Africa for the last 28 years, and I've been in some pretty interesting jurisdictions like the DRC and Zambia. And I must say that West Africa in general, and Mali as well, is a very nice place to do business. They understand the importance of foreign investment. And that is why I think in Mali, you see all of the major gold mining companies operating there, from Barrick to B2 Gold, to IM Gold, to Anglo Gold, Ashanti, because it is a good place to do business. And we've seen that in the 2 years that I've been involved. The government is very accessible. It's easy to get meetings with them. In the last month, for example, we've had 2 of our very important exploration permits renewed for a further 3 years. We've had our environmental permit approved, and we've had our definitive feasibility study approved. So I think from my perspective and my experience in Africa, it is a really good place to do business.
And what recent news would you like to highlight to investors? I was reading just before I logged on, you had a successful private placement last month, I think.
Yeah, we're actually in the closing stages of that right now. We announced it just around 2 weeks ago, with the intention to raise $3.5 million. I can talk a little bit about what we intend to do with that money, but we've had to upsize that to 5 million with a view to closing it today. That is on the back of some very strong demand from existing institutional and retail investors and family funds, but also some very good new institutions coming on board, which is really pleasing for us as we gear ourselves up for the next 6 to 12 months in what we intend to do here. So that's the placement, which is great news. We've also just delivered 3-4 weeks ago an updated definitive study, which is significantly better than the one we released last year. It is unusual to release a definitive study 12 months apart, but we thought it was essential as we used it as an opportunity to include our sulfide resource into the study to make sure that we could treat that. And what we've seen there is a massive increase in the amount of gold reserve that we're able to tackle now. So we've gone from previous 750,000 ounces approximately to 1.25 million ounces of reserve in the space of a year. So it really was a worthwhile exercise to update that study again.
You mentioned in answer to your previous question that you're starting to attract in more institutional investors. Certainly when I speak to institutional investors, ESG is definitely one thing that's on their mind. And of course, we're actually doing this interview whilst the second week of COP26 is running. What are Africa Gold Group's ESG credentials?
Well, look, we set out to always from the beginning align ourselves with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. That's a fairly ambitious process. As you know, they're fairly extensive, but at least if you use that as a guideline, you're able to look at the various categories and make sure that you are operating within those guidelines. On a much smaller scale, when we got involved in 2019, one of the things I was very uncomfortable about was the fact that Mali has very little grid power. So almost every single big mining operation there uses generators, so diesel, heavy fuel oil generators, and that's not great for the environment. What we did was we approached a number of institutions that set up hybrid power stations, so an independent power producer that can produce power from solar, from batteries, and then also from the balance from thermal power. So that's already allowed us to reduce our carbon emissions by probably around 40% in terms of our requirement. And it's also allowed us to generate solar power at a much cheaper rate than it is to burn carbon fuel. So this is a win-win for us. It's a significant reduction in carbon emissions and all the associated greenhouse gas emissions that go with that. But it also drops about $8 million a year off of our fuel bill as well. So economically, it's a very viable way to go. On top of that, we have a tailings dam like most mines do. Gold mining typically uses some fairly nasty chemicals such as cyanide. You often find arsenic related in the ore as well. So we made a decision right up front here to go for a HDPE lined tailings dam. We've also designed the tailings dam to international Canadian large tailings dam standards, which is really important. And we also use the ICMM tailings dam guidelines as well to make sure that because we're operating in the middle of Mali, there's no excuses for taking any shortcuts on the environmental side at all. On the governance side, interestingly, and it's pretty low key, the EU brought in a 2021 Conflict Minerals Act law, which was passed in January of this year. What that requires mining companies to do if they intend to transfer or ship their gold anywhere through the European Union is to basically be able to prove the provenance of that. So the World Gold Council are obviously on board on this. And that what we've done is very simply right now at this early stage is partner with a company called Safe Limited. They are a company that has excellence in blockchain technology and supply chain, and that allows us to be able to prove the provenance of our future gold all the way from source to end user. And then on the social side, which is to me as important or even more important than what I've already spoken about, typically mining is in fairly rural, lower income areas. There's not a lot of employment around there. So it's an absolute obligation and duty for us to make sure that the benefits from gold mining in that region come back into the region. And I've done this many times in my career, operating some very large mines. The social community side is absolutely critical to the success of your mining operation. So very simply, a management plan around employment, skills, projects in agriculture, water, infrastructure, etc. are really important. And part of what we will be doing over the course of the move towards the construction phase is to really build up that management plan to make sure that we tackle all of those social areas. And then I guess the sort of fourth leg to that is the artisanal mining side. Artisanal mining is a very big industry in most of West Africa, in fact, most of Africa. And we have artisanal miners on our property as well. We have a great relationship with them. They move off as we move into those areas to prepare for future mining and for exploration and drilling. But we have to do something with those guys. And part of this social plan is to be able to include some of those in the employment side and also in some of the upskilling that we require for goods and services that we will be using over the course of the next 15 to 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And as you look to go to the next stage of becoming, Africa's next major mid-tier gold producer, can you just talk to us a little bit about your management team and how you're set for growth?
Sure. So look, I mean, this is always a difficult conundrum. You're trying to keep the costs as low as possible in these stages when you're not producing any income. My advantage is that I come out of a very large corporate background. I worked for one of the major diversified miners for about 12 years. We built in excess of $2 billion worth of projects in the last 12 years. And I have a network of fantastic people that are either semi-retired or willing to move to come on board at the right time to be able to bring these projects into fruition. And that's from the construction side to the environmental to the health and safety side. So I really have this team bubbling in the background that isn't costing me anything right now, but the minute we can push the button on this, we can pull in a team that has built, billion-dollar mines in the past. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That was Danny Callow, President and CEO of African Gold Group. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.